Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Venom. For this series, they call it number 35, but Legacy, it's number 200. I just wish they would stop with putting like 35 and just, it's 200. Knock it off. In this book, I have to call it, sadly, an oversized disappointment. I mean, the book is this thick. It's the size of a collected trade. $10, and the beginning and the end story kind of tie into one another, and that's all this comic book needed to be. Everything in between it, pointless. I can kind of see certain parts that are building up future plot points. Okay, sure, whatever. But other than that, this was a boring freaking read. I'm gonna do the first story and the last story because they tie together, and it's actually good. If they would have done the first story and the last story and made it like a semi-bigger, like maybe like a $6 book, sure. But everything else, I don't want to touch. It was pointless. It was boring. It was a chore. So with that said, let's dive into this first story. So what kind of kills me is you open it up, and it starts with the accumulation of everything that Donny Cates has started with his Venom run, where, you know, fighting Spider-Man, fighting Null. I remember the big Blackwing Dragon arc, which was absolutely amazing. You know, fighting and finding out that first they said he had a brother, but come to find out that it was actually his son, Dylan. And he talks about how, you know, taking out Null, and defeating the Black King, it's taken its toll on him. He says, my fight begins again. And it's kind of cool. You're thinking, okay, we're going to get some action. We're going to get some battles. But what this is doing is it's talking about how Eddie doesn't need to go out essentially in the battlefield. He goes, when I defeated Null, I gained his power. I became the hive mind itself and able to pilot symbiotes across the galaxy. It is overwhelming. And yet, once upon a time, a man told me that my greatest fear was being alone. Maybe that's the reason I became what I was. And what made this story so interesting, if you go all the way back to the first issue of this run, it shows Eddie Brock in a place of brokenness, depression. And you kind of see where he is now, you know, accumulating all 35 issues of this run. It's interesting, but, you know, you see all these things that he's thinking about, he's talking about, and what he's able to do now, controlling all of these symbiotes. You know, he says, I'm home. And then what makes it interesting is he goes in here, I'm not a god. And so you see Dylan saying he needs to get ready for school. He was second, and you can see trying to pilot all of these symbiotes, what it's doing to him. He says, these last few months have been incredible, but like everything in my life, they're not without consequences. Becoming the hive mind for 1 billion life forms around the galaxy was easy for a being like Null. But, well, I'm just a man. And so you see what it's done to him. And the artwork's not bad, but after the artwork that you've seen for like the beginning of this arc, and then to just kind of see this, and you're thinking, okay, this is an oversized 200 issue, and this is what we get. It's just, I wish Ryan Stegman, I think it was Stegman, and maybe Mark Bagley would have done the whole book. But here, after we see what Eddie has become, after piloting all of these symbiotes, we get the credits. This is Donny Cates with Philip Kennedy Johnson writing, Ryan Stegman, Kev Walker, Daniel S. Beyruth, Ron Lim, Gio Villanova, Gerard Sandoval and Mark Bagley pencilers, which again, as I just said, I wish it would have just been Stegman and Bagley. J.P. Meyer, Jay Listlin, Kev Walker, Daniela Esberuth, Scott Hanna, Guillaume Villanova, Gerard Sandoval, Victor Nava, and John Dell Inkers. Yeah, here's everyone else working on the book. VC's Clayton Cowell's letter. As you can just see, just everything keeps going. So anyway, the book from there, I mean, look at the artwork, how the quality changes. This, as I said, did not need to be an oversized book. They should have kept Ryan Stegman on it because his artwork's what sucks you in. His penciling is just fantastic. And so we go after hearing about all of these symbiote fights, all these adventures. And then it's Eddie and his son fighting about breakfast and getting ready for school. It starts out and you're just thinking, really, who gives a shit? Like I was about ready to just close it and just give this to somebody and say, screw it, I'm done. But what I like is how the symbiote, Eddie's symbiote that he freed from Noel's clutches, has kind of become like the guardian of the family. He goes, I will accompany Dylan to school. And he goes, Eddie, please, for once in your life, allow someone to help you. And what I like here, and where you start to see where Donny Cates' brilliance kind of starts to shine through in terms of writing, is he goes, we have always been a team, always fought at each other's sides. But now, the fight is different. There's no more dragons or dark gods. Dylan is the mission now. And I like that because when you become a father, no matter what else you got going on in your life, your son and your family is the first mission. And so I like that this dog reminds Eddie what's important. And now him and his son have a falling out here at this point because Eddie's like, why didn't you tell me that you got in a fight in school and that you're supposed to be going to detention? He goes, I tried. I came down into your clubhouse or whatever, but your eyes were rolled back. You were all spaced out, like always. And you're thinking, okay, here's some good dramatic tension because Eddie says he wants to be there for his son, but he's too busy being Venom. But before we can even get into that, we get some more jokes. Hey, Spider-Man called like 10 times. I think you're late for like team up. What? When did he call? Sleeper, why didn't you tell me? I don't work here. Oh, look, haha, cat's knocking things down. Spider-Man called again. He said, I know. So funny because it's the cat. And it deflates the whole emotional moments with Dylan. It just, that's it. And it kills it. I hate that. I'm so sick and tired of this shit. This is some dramatic stuff that we're getting into. Pay it off. Now, oh look, Grumpy Cat knocks things off the couch. It's so funny. No, it's not. And it just deflated the whole book. Now, with that said, we'll get into the second part here in a minute, which ties everything up. But I wish that there would have been a more emotional payoff here. Because this whole cat thing just, again, I almost slammed this book shut because I'm so tired. After years of reading comic books, yes, there's been jokes and some of them haven't landed throughout the years. But I hate when they let stupid, grumpy cat, stuff like this, interrupt something that can be brilliant just for a cheap fucking laugh. It's stupid. Now maybe I'm overreacting, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm sick of stuff like that. Now there's a really great moment, get off the soapbox. There's a really great moment here where Dylan is bonding with the symbiote. He goes, what do I call you? And he's like, what do you mean? And they have a really good moment together. Thankfully, it's not screwed up by like, oh, look, doggy made a poo-poo. I was actually waiting for that because the dog, the symbiote, walks Dylan to school. watches over him while he's at school. But after that whole stupid cat moment, I was waiting for like, oh look, I made a poo-poo, you gotta pick it up, hee hee hee, hoo hoo hoo, 5-year-old humor, hee hee hee. I was waiting for that, I really was. Thankfully, it's not the case. This part pays off really well. Now, I'm gonna kind of flip through some of the pages here and kind of explain why I don't give a shit about the rest of this book. There's supposed to be this moment where Spider-Man and Eddie are having lunch. Spider-Man's trying to apologize, which, if they would have focused on it and actually act like they gave a shit, it would have been a very emotional moment. Spider-Man's trying to apologize for initially bringing the symbiote to Earth. And he goes, if it wasn't for me, for not being strong enough to harness the symbiote, we wouldn't be where we are today. It is very poignant, but it's thrown off by like, oh, hey, Eddie, you're in a trance now talking to the Avengers, because as we just established, Eddie can talk and be multiple places at once. And Spider-Man's like, oh, are you omnipotent? And like, he's being this snarky little shit. Like, Peter has always been the type that'll like quip and be a turd. And it's funny, but you can kind of see him being an asshole. That's not that. This is just like, you're being omnipotent. And Brock's like, omnipotent means that I know everything. I don't. I'm omnipresent. Peter is a savant scientist. He's not an idiot. Stop writing him as an idiot. Take a page from Chip Zdarsky. Go back and read the first part of his Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man. They made him an idiot. Nobody liked it. I dropped it after the second issue. And then you get to issue 6, where he reveals himself to J. Jonah Jameson being Spider-Man. Holy freaking macaroni. The book changed and became one of the best-selling books, because then it stopped being that hee hee hee, so random, hee hee, look at all this 5-year-old Twitter humor, hee hee, lol, so random, too. Deep, emotional, complex moments. This sucked. And the rest of the book is him meaning like his whole bunch of exposition dump. Boring. And then we actually, we do get a moment about the Maker. This is setting up future plot points. This explains how the Maker brings the symbiote from his universe, why he was so involved in Eddie Brock's life throughout the arc. And this part right here was good. But then it's taken away for more talking and bad humor, because here I see things you do not. Tony says, I get that, but help me out here. When is this invasion supposed to? One moment. Bud, you fall asleep or? Sorry, I'm in a diner with Spider-Man. He's making a joke and attempting to steal my fries. Ha 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 ha! Who gives a shit? Now, again, that's just the tip of the iceberg of why I skipped the whole inner part of this book. Now, let's get to what I want to talk about. We go to Midtown High. A few months ago, I was fighting dragons and the Lord of the Abyss alongside Captain America and my dad. Screaming and fighting, covered in snow and blood and ash. God, I miss that. At least I knew where I fit in there. At least there I felt important. Like I mattered. And then we kind of get the, just like as we were talking about with Clown Hunter, here's the stereotypical jock that looks like a cookie cutter version of Flash. Now, that aside, what I like is, again, when Cates isn't using those horrible ha-ha-ha's moments, listen to the dialogue. Bully goes, didn't see you there. How many times I gotta tell you, this holiday is for seniors only, not little babies. Well, you know, Kenny. How many times have you been a senior now? Must be a record, right? I mean, hey, get them where you can. I guess certainly not gonna happen on the field. Or anywhere else, the way I hear it. And you're thinking, oh shit, this is good, this is good. And Dylan, he grabs him and he goes, I'm not afraid of you. You might want to consider, you little... See, I know your secret, Kenny. I know why you pick on me. Because you're afraid of me. you can see it. I'm what you pretend to be. And you're thinking, oh shit, this is good. Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. And Dylan can't stop himself. He's just crunch, and he's like on the verge of killing him. But guess what? Hey, where'd you go, weirdo? I was talking to you. Oh look, our expectations were once again subverted. Instead of actually making that a point and making that like, oh shit, there's something up with Dylan, you know, and making life a little complicated for Eddie. No. Now, storytelling-wise, I can kind of understand, because Dylan knows that he has this strength inside him and how he doesn't adhere to it. So you can kind of see that reluctant hero to a degree. So when talking of like a hero's journey in terms of traditional storytelling, I can understand that. But at the same time, it's like, how many times have we seen a comic or a book or a movie do this? And you're just like, why the hell did I even bother reading that then if he's just going to end up getting his ass kicked? It's an old trope that's worn out and played out and very tiring. So even though that moment, you feel the momentum and you're like, oh, this is good, hell yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I just paid $10 for a Nothingburger. Now there's a good moment with the counselor. I'll let you guys read that. And again, this is where it gets good again, because what the hell is his name? Dylan is talking about how he's mad at life in general. He's not even sure what he's mad at anymore, but he knows for a fact that he is infuriated at his dad for taking his powers away. Now again, we kind of get a trope. Here's Jack-o'-lantern mugging somebody in an alleyway, which why the hell if you're a supervillain would you mug someone in the alleyway? But the plot needs to happen. So Dylan steps in. Something happens. I don't want to give it all away. But needless to say, where's the page I want to talk about? Hold on a second. Someone kind of becomes the new man in the suit, while Brock kind of becomes the man in the chair at this point. And he goes, well, why chains? I don't know. I thought maybe webs were played out. Plus, all the comics I read growing up had chains. I just like them. So the reason I wanted to read that panel is I appreciate that is a nod to Todd McFarlane, who really kind of reinvigorated Spider-Man back in the 90s with the spaghetti webs. And from what Todd says is everyone in the Marvel office initially hated the spaghetti webs, but he did such a good job, that's why they gave him his own Spider-Man run, which if you've not read his portion of it, absolutely phenomenal. Now, Venom 200. There is another story in there, and it was okay. Without giving too much away, I'm sick of the death and resurrection bullshit. I'm so tired of that. Like, not saying it would happen, but if I was signed on as a writer for Marvel or DC, I would make it explicit in my contract that if I kill a character, they're dead. Like, under contract, can they never come back? The only way the character, or should I say the mantle, can come back is someone else picks it up. But, you know, if let's say we killed off Peter Parker, Peter's dead. That's it. Nothing like Dan Slott did, yada yada, he's dead. We'll put Ben Reilly in the suit and move on and call it a day. Same with Steve Rogers, where, you know, if we decide to kill Steve Rogers, then either Bucky or Falcon would take up the mantle because they're the most logical choices, and Cap would be dead, period. No more. But this whole death and resurrection, it got played out in the 90s. Death the Superman was kind of like the biggest FU to fans because it hit everyone hard and then they brought him back way too quick. I kind of feel like they should have left him dead for a couple of years. And I remember being a whole part of that trend of reading the books, but yeah. Anyway, sum this all up. If they would have used the first part with Eddie and Dylan and the last part with Eddie and Dylan, it would have been bookends and it would have been great. If they want to kind of expand it a little bit, make it a $6 book, as I said at the beginning, or a $7 book, fine. But $10 book for subpar art, for the most part. I'm not saying that I could do better, you know. It's serviceable. But this is supposed to be a big deal, issue 200. Make it look like a significant book instead of looks like a rush job. I'm sorry. But the tonal work all around, disappointing. But anyway, this video is getting a little too long. I apologize, but it's just there's a lot that I need to get off of this chest. I was really hoping for more from this book, and it let me down. So if you avoid or just kind of skim through the middle part and read, as I said, the bookends of Brock and Dylan on the beginning and the end, it turns out to be a really good story, and I'm hoping that those parts move forward, but all that exposition in the middle, minus the Maker story, was decent. So I'll leave it with this. If you guys have enjoyed this comic book, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Venom bell next to subscribe, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit... Sorry guys, it's been a long day. I haven't had enough coffee yet. But yeah, if you really wouldn't mind hitting like, share, and subscribe, it helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you hit that bell, as I just said, now back on track, you guys get notified, come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with this video, and I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.